In the dimly lit barracks of the Interstellar outpost, the air was thick with tension. Human soldiers whispered quietly among themselves, casting nervous glances at the alien mercenary who had recently joined their ranks. She was known only as Kalara, a warrior from the distant Zorath system, with eyes that glowed faintly under the cold artificial lights and a reputation for unmatched combat skills. Tobias, a young recruit, had been watching her from the shadows. He knew he shouldn't, but curiosity gnawed at him. There was something mesmerizing about Kalara, her strength, her silence, the way she carried herself with an almost untouchable grace. And tonight, when the others had retreated to their quarters, Tobias saw a chance. Kalara was in her private chamber, preparing for the mandatory sanitation procedure that all soldiers had to undergo after long missions. The door was slightly ajar, and Tobias's heart raced as he peered inside. The dim lights outlined her form as she began removing her armor. Every movement was precise, controlled, and powerful. Tobias felt a mix of awe and guilt. He knew spying was wrong, yet he couldn't look away. Then, it happened. Kalara's head turned slightly, as if sensing his gaze. Tobias froze, his stomach twisting in panic. Alien mercenaries were rumored to have senses far beyond human comprehension. He had read it in the briefing: some could sense fear, others could detect lies, and a few could feel intent. Kalara's eyes met his, glowing with a strange, eerie light, and Tobias immediately regretted every thought he had entertained. He stumbled backward, knocking over a metal crate, which clattered loudly against the floor. The sound echoed through the barracks, and the shadows seemed to grow thicker around him. Kalara didn't shout. She didn't raise her weapon. Instead, she did something no one expected: she smiled. Not a friendly smile, but a knowing one, sharp and calculating. Then, with a speed that blurred Tobias's vision, she was at his side. "You should not be here," she said in a voice that was calm but carried the weight of a predator. Her words made Tobias shiver. I didn't mean to," he stammered, unable to look away from her piercing eyes. Kalara's smile widened just slightly, enough to show a hint of sharp teeth. Then she reached out, not to strike, but to touch the back of his neck. Tobias flinched, expecting pain, but instead he felt a strange warmth, like the gentle heat of a sunbeam. Suddenly, images flashed in his mind: visions of distant galaxies, battles fought in zero gravity, the endless void of space, and he realized she was reading him. Not just his mind, but his intentions, his curiosity, his fear. "You are curious," she said softly. "And that curiosity can be dangerous." Tobias's knees shook. He wanted to apologize, to explain, but the words caught in his throat. He felt exposed, as if Kalara had stripped away not just his secrets, but his very essence. Then, without warning, Kalara did something even more shocking. She stepped back, relaxed her posture, and said, "You may observe, but only if you are willing to learn." Tobias blinked, confused. "Learn? What do you mean?" Kalara gestured to a small holographic console on the wall. "Knowledge is power, human. You watched me, yes, but now you will understand why we do what we do. Come closer." Hesitant, Tobias obeyed. He watched as Kalara activated the console. Holographic images filled the room: ancient Zorathian battlefields, tactical formations, alien technology beyond human comprehension. She narrated each scene in a calm, instructive tone. Tobias's fear began to fade, replaced by awe. He realized that Kalara was not just a warrior, she was a living archive of her people's history, a teacher disguised as a mercenary. Hours passed. Tobias absorbed every lesson, every tactic, every story of survival and strategy. Kalara watched him closely, correcting his assumptions, guiding his thoughts. It was an education like no other, a masterclass in warfare, survival, and alien culture. By the time the lights of the barracks dimmed for the night, Tobias was no longer the same person. The guilt of his earlier actions remained, but it was tempered by gratitude and respect. Kalara had turned his moment of weakness into a chance for growth. "Remember this," Kalara said, her voice now almost gentle. "Curiosity without control leads to destruction. But curiosity with understanding leads to power." Tobias nodded, silently vowing to never betray that trust again. He understood that Kalara's reaction, the initial shock, the sudden intimacy of her teaching, was not just about discipline, but about challenging him to see beyond himself. As he left her quarters, he glanced back. Kalara returned to her chamber, the soft hum of alien machinery filling the space. Tobias realized that he had glimpsed something extraordinary, not just a warrior, but a mentor, a living testament to a civilization far older and wiser than humanity. And in that quiet moment, he understood a simple truth: respect was earned not by hiding, not by sneaking, but by being willing to face the unknown with honesty and humility. Word of Tobias's encounter spread quickly through the ranks the next day. Soldiers whispered about how he had been tested by Kalara. Some were skeptical, some envious, but all understood one thing: Kalara was not someone to be trifled with. She was an alien mercenary, yes, but also a force of wisdom and discipline. Tobias never forgot that night. He had been caught doing something shameful, yet he had learned something priceless. And every time he saw Kalara, standing silently at attention, he felt a mix of fear and admiration. He knew now that in the vast expanse of space, survival wasn't just about strength or skill, it was about understanding, respect, and knowing when to watch, when to act, and when to learn. And somewhere deep inside, Tobias knew that this encounter was only the beginning. Kalara had opened a door to knowledge, and the universe was waiting beyond it.